And the Oscar goes to I'm Still Here, Brazil.
During Oscars night, many Latin Americans, including first-generation Hispanics in the US, like me, were in celebration all over social media when Emilia Perez lost to I'm Still Here for Best International Feature Film. And with the speeches by the Emilia Perez cast, we confirm that they never refer to Mexican culture, to the disappeared, or to the violence that the movie exploits. It's a joke. Spanish is such an incredible language for pop music, says the composer who did not bother to look up the correct translations to Spanish and just used the first thing coming out of ChatGPT. Zoe Saldaña didn't mention the victims of the violence once, or spoke one word in Spanish, being the only one that spoke it remotely decently. With all due respect, go If you're not Latino, you might attribute Emilia's downfall to the antics of its star, Carla Sofia Gascon, but that was just the latest in a comedy of missteps that began when director Jacques Audiard didn't even think that authenticity was an important consideration when crafting it. To explain, let me tell you a personal anecdote. A few weeks ago, I was invited to be Spanish coach and cultural consultant for a big voiceover session for a Fortune 100 company. One of the most rewarding parts of my career has been using my cultural background and experience with music and sound to advise companies on how to communicate with Latinos in the US. At this particular session, we were choosing the top talent out of an audition of 30 or so professionals. Imagine my surprise when a few of the voiceover artists start speaking terrible Spanish with pronunciation that was clearly non-native. They were a couple of Americans that had learned Spanish as a second language. Imagine how many steps in the chain had to go wrong for this to happen. This talent was already part of the selects from a much larger pool of talent. They had to be vetted by the casting agency, the client, who didn't speak Spanish but thought they knew enough to decide, and the talent itself, who knew that they were not native speakers but chose to audition anyway, and probably got jobs before this way. Now, I'm not talking about dialect, like when Bad Bunny sings "Debí tirar más foto," loping off the consonants at the end of the words. That's an authentic expression of an identity. I'm talking about bad Spanish, riddled with the mistakes typical of someone just learning. And we're also talking about a huge corporation that counts first-generation Latinos as a sizable portion of their audience, especially first generation. It's actually one of their main audiences. Conveying to all the stakeholders how big of a mistake this is wasn't easy. I said something like, imagine you are responsible for producing the ad campaign for the latest model Ford F-150, a product as American as the Big Mac, and to be targeted at, let's say, the American Midwest. Would you, in a million years, select a voiceover talent that was not a native English speaker, but rather someone that had been taking lessons in English for a year or two? Of course not. This would be labeled downright offensive. The brand would be the butt of jokes all over social media the instant the campaign aired or streamed. It would be absurd. To connect with your audience, you have to gain their trust on an authentic level. So, for the life of me, how is it that American corporations are so careless when deciding to speak to the millions of Latinos in America in their language? This is not the first time I encountered this, by the way. Fortunately, the client took the advice and went for the native speakers. I'm not sure if anyone brought all this to the attention of Emilia Perez's director, but judging by his quotes in public and his dismissive attitude towards the subjects of his storytelling, it's probable that he surrounds himself with people that don't even care about this. Spanish is the language of the poor and the third world. That's the actual quote from him, delivered in an interview, not as an offhand remark, in a hot mic moment. It's no wonder that no one questioned Selena Gomez's atrocious Spanish or the nonsensical lines she was given in the script. And they're paying the price for it now. After being ridiculed by an entire continent, Latin America practically took their entire Oscars campaign down. 3 years ago, I was watching the Colombian singer Sebastián Yatra perform a song from the Disney movie Encanto at the Oscars ceremony. I had subtitles on, apparently, according to research, very millennial of me. And there was a simultaneous translation for the American audience. Keep in mind, this is on ABC, owned by Disney. I see the word consent flash on the screen. I did a double take. The song is about two little caterpillars falling in love. Did they have to consent to each other? No. Sebastián had sung consentimiento with feeling, not consentimiento, consent, on a Disney property for a Disney project about Colombia on the biggest night of the industry. Come on. This is usually how low the right cultural context is on the list of priorities. If Latinos, especially first generation, are important to your company's marketing, do yourself a favor and take authenticity and cultural context seriously. Not just when it comes to language, but authentic music, the authenticity of the stories and of those acting them. This is not a political statement, it's just good business. See you in the next one.